Professor Sivakar, you can start now.
Yeah, I have just now talked to the participants. Good afternoon, participants. Welcome back to the second session by Professor Atul Sharma on overview of CFD. In this session, Professor Sharma will try to cover the remaining part of the second part of it, in which he will deal with the scientific based and scientific and engineering based simulations, or the kind of a camera which he has always done an analogy of CFD with that of the scientific and engineering camera, with which he will further deal with. He will talk about the financial methodology now. So I request Professor Sharma to please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Sivakar. So I'll share the screen and get started. I welcome all of you to the second lecture of the two-part lecture on Introduction to CFD, Development Application Analysis. You are able to see the shared screen?
Yes, it's coming. Yeah, it is there.
It has come?
Yeah, it is there, sir. It is there.
Okay, so I welcome you back to the second lecture of the Faculty Development Program on Computational Fluid Dynamics for Beginner. This course is sponsored by AICTE and it is organized by the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Government College of Engineering and Research, Apsari. The course coordinator for this course is Professor Sivakar and Professor Shirsagar. And we are into the first session, that's the forenoon session, where we have two lectures. And I'm giving both the lectures, and I'm into the second lecture of the series of lecture. I had started my lecture on what CFD is, where I talked about the two different definitions. First, I gave a definition drawing an analogy with a video camera, and I presented the definition more of a development application analysis with CFD software as a product. And then I had gone into how CFD works, where I am presenting, I had presented in my last lecture the grid generation. And I am into the second step of the CFD, that is the algebraic formulation. So let me go into how CFD works, where I had left. I mentioned that there are 5 different steps of CFD development. Let me go back. So I have mentioned that when we talk of how CFD works, there are 3 things: how CFD development works, how CFD application works, and how CFD analysis works. I am somewhere for this how CFD development work, where I had talked about that there are 5 different steps of CFD development. The first step is like pixel generation. This I had presented the simplest of the grid generation, the Cartesian grid generation, where I had shown you equispaced horizontal and vertical lines. And I had shown you 2 types of pixels or grid points: yellow pixels, which are inside, which are inside the domain, where we ensure that we apply the conservation law and we ensure the application of conservation laws. And for the boundary grid points, I mentioned that for the blue circles at the boundary grid points, we have to apply the boundary conditions. Now, I was into the algebraic formulation, and I was discussing the 2 approaches of finite volume method, where I was saying that in your undergraduate courses, the differential equations that you derive, basically each term of the differential equation represents the conservation law per unit volume. And in all the CFD book that you see, what they do is that they start with these differential equations. So the book introduced CFD such that this CFD subject looks like it's too mathematical. And it uses then certain mathematical operations like volume integral where I again highlight that in your undergraduate course from the conservation law, you divide by volume, and in a CFD course, volume integral is like you're multiplying by volume. So naturally the question comes, can't we avoid this dividing by volume and then multiplying and directly start from the control volume and derive the govern equation in CFD? So this is what is done in almost all the CFD book, which if you compare with the method that I present, this probably can be called as partial differential equation based finite volume method. So almost all the books in CFD starts with differential equation, and they present a finite volume method which is based on partial differential equations. Whereas the finite volume that I had presented in my book, it starts with the conservation laws, which I call as physical laws. Those are mass, momentum, and energy conservation laws. And so I call the method as, my present method as physical law based finite volume method. I also had emphasized that it is PD free. You do not have to bother about differential equations for this finite volume method. So this starts with this same control volume that second year or third year students see in their undergraduate fluid mechanics heat transfer course. So if you teach this finite volume method to the second year or third year students, they should be equally able to appreciate the control volume which they presently do in their undergraduate courses. So from the same control volume and using some discrete math and with certain approximations, I had come up with a finite volume method, physical law-based finite volume method, where you can derive the same algebraic equations which have been presented in the other books using this partial differential equation and Gauss divergence here. Okay, so using this finite volume method, you can teach the present second year, at least third year student this finite volume method, and they can develop the computer program. So you can contribute into developing their computational skills, and that can lead to CFD software, make CFD software in India. Okay, so I have not only presented in this my book, but also opened a website, cfdmadeeasy.org, where you can freely download the computer programs that have been developed. For example, problem in this book, the movies corresponding to the movies that I had presented in the book. In the book, I had presented the series of pictures for movies, but you can get the electronic copy of the movies from this website. You can also download the colored figure of this book, because in the book it is a black and white figure, so you can download the colored version of this. Okay, so with this, let me go into, so when you do the algebraic formulations, so I want to highlight that there is a key difference between an analytical course and computational course. So what I'm doing presently is that, let us suppose if you compare what you've already studied, what you've studied in your, let us say, heat conduction course is analytical heat conduction. And what you will study here is a computational heat conduction. So basically in this, through these slides, couple of slides, I want to present the key difference between an analytical and computational heat conduction as presented here. So the objective is to present the key difference between analytical and computational heat conduction, where you need to realize that in analytical heat conduction you use a continuous framework, whereas in computational heat conduction you use a discrete framework. So I will draw a certain comparison between analytical heat conduction and computational heat conduction. Note that the conduction that we are considering here for present discussion is two-dimensional unsteady state heat conduction. And domain, so let's suppose in your undergraduate course also we consider a control volume. Here in CFD also we will consider the same control volume, but there is a difference. The control volume that you consider in your undergraduate course, since you finally apply delta x, delta y tending to 0, you are taking a control volume which we call as infinitesimal control volume. Okay, so to get a differential term, you use this delta x, delta y, delta t tending to 0. So you have taken the elemental length in space and time as infinitesimal. Whereas in a computational course, note that we'll take the same control volume, but we will not take them towards 0. We will take them to be finite enough. Okay, where this delta x will be the distance between the pixels in the horizontal direction, and this delta y will be the distance between the pixels or grid points in CFD in the vertical direction. This delta t will be the time interval corresponding to two different pictures that we create through our CFD simulations. So note that this delta x, delta t are considered finite, but we considered it to be small enough for accurate solution because each CFD problem has its own action. Now, if you want to capture this accurately, the number of pixel or the time interval that is required is problem dependent. So note that in CFD, we want to know the answer of certain question, but unfortunately, the answer is not available. We have to do certain study. So what I am saying that these are finite, but should be small enough for accurate solution. This word small enough is very important to get an accurate solution. And this small enough, we have to do certain exercise, which is called as grid size independent study, time step independent study. To make sure that the results that we are presenting, we are ensuring that our grids and times, our resolution, spatial and temporal resolution. It is like our video camera, we have taken sufficient spatial and temporal resolution so that it can capture the movie. Like I have mentioned, if you want to create a movie of a blast versus something which is varying slowly, you can have a camera of small spatial and temporal resolution to capture something which is varying very slowly in space and time. But something which is varying very fast as a blast, you need a video camera whose temporal resolutions are very large. Okay, similarly in CFD, when you consider a fluid flow problem, let us suppose if you consider flow across a car, if car is moving, let us say 10 meters per second versus 100 meters per second, then the action of fluid flow that is there for car moving at 10 kilometers per hour versus 100 kilometers per hour, then the action is very different. So for when the car is moving with a large velocity, you have a large velocity gradient, and to capture this, you need a video camera which is a large spatial resolution. So for when the same car is moving with a larger velocity, you need a much larger delta x, delta y, so that this small enough becomes much smaller for a car moving at a larger velocity as compared to a car moving with a smaller velocity. Now, as far as the known variables in analytical heat conduction and computational heat conduction, the known variables are same. The known variables are spatial coordinate in 2D, it's x and y. If you take a 3D, it's a z coordinate also. And so the known variables in our problem, whether we study analytically or computationally, are these coordinates x, y, and time. Note that these coordinates are continuous. We consider, since we take this delta x, delta y, delta t is equals to 0, we are considering the point as continuous space and continuous in time. Whereas in a computational course, our pixels are having certain spacing between the two consecutive pixels, and our pictures in a movie has certain time intervals. So our data, our x and y and time are discrete in space. In fact, we have a coordinates of the circles that I had shown you while grid generation. So when we do grid generation, we calculate the coordinates, x and y coordinates of those yellow circles and blue circles. And we also have a finite time interval that we use. This we call as time step in CFD. Okay, so our times are like t1, t2, t0. T0 is like time is equals to 0 from where we are starting our movie. And then we obtain results for delta t2, delta t, and so on. So our time is varying from, we have a discrete time, t1, t2, t3, and so on. Our pixels are also discrete in space. So note that here we have data, our known variables are discrete in space. Okay, so these are the known variables. Now, when you go to the conservation laws, in your undergraduate heat transfer course, you use a conservation law where the statement of conservation law is applicable for each and every time instant. Now, the physical law based finite volume method that I had presented in my book, that I had introduced in my book, I had taken the same conservation law, but I prefer to call it as a discrete form of the conservation law. So the statement that you use in your undergraduate heat transfer course, that statement is corresponding to each and every time instant. Whereas the conservation law that I had presented in my physical law based finite volume method, which I am presenting here for heat conduction, that statement I have expressed in such a way that statement is applicable over a time interval. Just to give an example, let us suppose time is varying in seconds, where the continuous time is 1 second, 2 seconds, and so on. So this statement that you use in a heat transfer course is applicable for each and every time instant. Whereas let us suppose I have taken a time interval of 5 seconds, then what I'm saying is that over the 5 second interval, I'll make a statement which is applicable over a time interval of 5 seconds. So 0 to 5 seconds, this statement is applicable. Then 5 to 10, this statement is applicable. 10 to 15, this statement is applicable. Whereas when I make this statement, I'm saying it's applicable for each and every time stamp, 1 second, 2 seconds, each and every time stamp. So this is a continuous form of the conservation law. So the same statement can be expressed in a continuous form, and the same statement can be made for a discrete form. Now, whenever I have to make a statement over a time interval, then I have to say, let us suppose if the time interval is 5 seconds, then the statement I have to say is that in 5 seconds, the amount of heat which is entering minus the amount of heat which is leaving plus the amount of heat which is generated is equals to change in enthalpy. Okay, now the statement that here that is presented is like which you have used in your undergraduate heat transfer course. This is the rate of heat transfer that is entering. This is the rate of heat transfer that is leaving. This is the rate of heat transfer which is generated. This is the rate of change of enthalpy. Okay, so if you see the statements which I am saying, the statement is this statement what you have studied in heat transfer course. But this statement which I am saying, which is applicable over a time interval. And for example, for a time interval of 5 seconds, I am saying that this is the amount of heat which is entering. So if you go back to your previous courses, you have studied a course in which you use the statement, amount of heat entering, amount of heat. In heat transfer, you use rate of heat transfer. But the word amount of heat you have used in your another course, not in heat transfer. Now, I would like you to write in the chat box in which course, what I'm saying is you use energy conservation law in 2 different undergraduate compulsory courses. In one course, you use rate of heat transfer. In another course, you use amount of heat transfer. Now I'll stop sharing the slide. I'll go back and see the chat box. I want all of you to write in the chat box. The question is, in which course you apply the energy conservation law where the statement is based on amount of heat, not the rate of heat transfer. So write down in the chat box the answer to the question. In which course you use amount of heat transfer, not the rate of heat transfer. Note that it's a compulsory undergraduate course. You study in the beginning of your undergraduate curriculum. And you study before heat transfer. Okay, so in thermodynamics, you study heat. In heat transfer also you study heat. But there is a difference. In thermodynamics, it's amount of heat. In heat transfer, it's rate of heat transfer. So note that to present this physical law based finite volume method, I have borrowed the statement from what you have studied in your undergraduate thermodynamics course, which is a basic course. Okay, and in that you have studied the amount of heat which is entering plus the amount of heat which is generated minus the amount of heat which is leaving is equals to change in enthalpy. In thermodynamics you study there are 2 types of function, path function and point function. Okay, so where you say that the change in internal energy or change in enthalpy is a point function, and you say the amount of heat transfer or the work done are path functions. Okay, so this change in enthalpy over the time interval, which could be 5 seconds, this is a point function. So I'm writing it with respect to 2 different time instants, enthalpy at t plus delta t minus enthalpy at t. However, you will notice that I am borrowed a statement, but the symbols that I'm using is similar to what you have seen in heat transfer. In heat transfer, you see the symbol Q. What is this Q? This is not amount. This Q is the rate of heat transfer. So I have borrowed as far as the statement is concerned from thermodynamics. But the symbol that I am using is capital Q. To convert into amount, I am multiplying by the time interval. Okay. So, but the thing is, I am using if you compare this Q, which is entering Q in, and if you compare this, there is a superscript in this. I'm using a word mean, which is like the time average. What is this time? So what I'm trying to say is that although let us suppose if there is a time interval of 5 seconds, I'm saying this is the amount of heat which is entering into the control volume. This is the amount of heat which is leaving. But in that time interval, at each and every second, there is some heat which is entering. But I am just see that I'm expressing it by one time instant value. And that time instant value I am calling as mean or time average. Let me ask you a question. Again, I would look forward that in your chat box, you have to answer this question. If you take a measuring instrument and measure, like if you take a temperature measuring instrument, you can get the data, the temperature measurement for each and every time instant, or you get after certain time interval. So the answer is every time instant or after certain interval. Write down in the chat box. From a measuring instrument, you get the data at each and every time instant or after some time interval. Okay. So all of you are writing that, almost all of you are writing that you always get a data after certain time. Each instrument has certain time constant. It takes some time to sense the temperature variation and give you the data. So in the real world, whenever you do experiment, and in fact in real world, analytical solution is not possible. What is possible is computational solution. So in the real world, whether you do experiment or computation, note that you get results always not at each and every time instant. You always get over a time interval. Now, in a computational course, you need to realize that to create movies, I have to talk about the rate of heat transfer. I cannot talk about amount of heat and go ahead. Because then only I can create a movie, because unless I have a term of rate, I can, because when you compare thermodynamics versus heat transfer, in like in a thermodynamics, you study the amount of heat. In thermodynamics, you study the amount of mass of an object. But when you go to fluid mechanics, you study mass flow rate. When you go to heat transfer, you study heat transfer rate. Fluid mechanics heat transfer are called as rate processes. So basically, I have to use a variable which involves rate, but I have to express this rate of heat transfer by one time instant value. Although this Q is continuous in time, theoretically, or physically also in the real world, but it is our limitation that in our measuring instrument, we cannot get the data. It is our limitation theoretically in computation that we cannot get the data for each time step. So when you go to a computational course, note that physically it is continuous, but I have to break that continuity and I have to make it discrete. Now, if I ask you, let us suppose you get a data from your temperature measuring instrument after every 5 seconds. So that data, because when I have to report it, I cannot, I would like to report it for one time instant. So which is the best time? 0 second, 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4, 5, or 2.5? Which is the best time instant to represent? If I ask you that, I don't want the answer that this data is between 0 and 5 seconds. I want an answer for one time instant. You have to tell me whether it is 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to give me one value. Okay. So in a computational course, mathematically, there is a term which is defined to represent something which is varying over so something which is a path function with respect to time. Okay, which is depending on how the time is how the parameter is evolving, which is a path function, and I want to express it by one point value. Then mathematically, if something is varying in time and we have to express it by one time instant, then we have a term which is called as time average. So note that in a computational course, we have to break the continuity by defining a term which we call as time average or mean. So I'm just introducing it. You can find more details regarding this in my book. And then, so this is the expression that you use in your heat transfer course. The rate of heat transfer that is entering plus the rate of heat transfer that is generated minus the rate of heat transfer that is leaving. This is equal to rate of change of enthalpy. In a computational course, I have defined the discrete form, this as the discrete form of the energy conservation law, and express it the amount of heat that is entering, but the amount of plus the amount of heat which is generated minus the amount of heat which is leaving is equals to change in enthalpy. This enthalpy is a point function. So change in enthalpy means enthalpy at the T plus delta T minus enthalpy between the two time intervals. Okay. Note that this rate of heat transfer is a path function. I'm just expressing it by one time instant value, which mathematically is called as time average. So this statement, if you see this statement as well as the formulation, the symbols that I have used, this is both on the rate basis. The discrete form, I have borrowed the statement from thermodynamics. So statement is on amount basis, whereas the formulation is on rate basis. Okay, this formulation, if you see, I'm using rate of heat transfer. The formulation is rate of heat transfer, but the statement that I'm making is from thermodynamics. This is amount basis. Here the statement is on amount basis, but the formulation is on the rate basis. So I'm just showing you that between analytical and computational, when you take the domain and variables, they are continuous in analytical, but in computational, it's discrete. In your undergraduate heat transfer course, when you study analytical heat conduction, use a conservation law, which I have called as continuous form. And in computational, I came up with another state. It's basically a statement you have already studied in thermodynamics, which I have called as discrete form. Now the physical law. Now, if you talk about the governing equations, so in your in your undergraduate heat transfer course, all of you know that you take an infinitesimal control volume and you derive differential equations. Whereas in any computational heat conduction, we take a finite control volume instead of infinitesimal, where delta x delta y tends to 0. We take a finite delta x delta y based control volume, and using that we derive the algebraic formulation in the physical law based finite volume. Note that in your undergraduate differential equation, when you derive, you have considered the various variables like rate of heat transfer, heat generation, and you have taken enthalpy. You have taken them, all the variables, as a continuous variable. Whereas the same variables we will consider in computational course. But in a physical law finite volume method, I had come up with a discrete math-based approximate linear algebraic equation, where to begin with, when we start the application of conservation law, we do not define this variable as a continuous variable. We use certain approximation. One such approximation I presented in the previous slide, where I had introduced time-wise approximation as time averaged value. Okay, something which is varying over a time interval by 1 time instant value corresponding to a time average value. So in your undergraduate heat conduction, you derive this equation, which is a differential equation, which is derived from continuous math-based partial differential equation. Whereas in a computational course, the physical law-based finite volume method, we use discrete math-based approximated linear algebraic equation. Note that when you obtain the solution computationally, the solution is always approximate. You cannot get exact solution. Analytical solution gives exact solution, but that is not possible. What is possible is, but this approximate doesn't mean inaccurate. Okay. We try to make sure that our grid size are the size is, when we say reasonably small, so that we get an accurate solution. But note that our solutions are always approximate because we use certain approximation to derive these algebraic equations. Okay, so this is the governing equation, differential equation in your analytical heat conduction. These algebraic equations. When I talk of algebraic equation, basically we obtain an equation where, let us say for one, this is an equation for this yellow circle. This equation is basically saying the value of this yellow circle is a function of the temperature of its east neighbor, west neighbor, north neighbor, and south neighbor. Okay, so if there are 25 yellow circles in the previous slide, it's not that the equation for one yellow circle is a function of the other 24 yellow circles. The way we have done the approximation for heat conduction, one grid point value is a function of maybe 4 neighbors. Now, when you go to from the governing equations, if you look into the initial, if you go from governing equation to the initial and boundary condition, you can see that the
सर गए चेक करो हम भी
When you consider physical and boundary
आप लोग हो सकते सिम्टम होगा तो अरे बाप रे मिस्टर प्रशांत
So along with the governing equation, the initial condition and boundary condition are also continuous in analytical heat conduction. Like when we apply initial condition in heat conduction, analytical heat conduction for various x and y at time t is equals to 0. We note that we always know the data for the first picture from initial condition and boundary condition, and we use the data of the first picture to obtain the second picture after second time interval. And the data for the second picture is used to obtain the data for the third time instant. So initial conditions and boundary conditions are important to get the movie in fluid dynamics, whether you follow an analytical or computational procedure. So, but note that in analytical heat conduction, this initial condition and boundary condition, they are continuously. Like if you are applying, there are two types of boundary conditions. Constant wall temperature, if you apply, those are called as Dirichlet boundary conditions. If you apply the other type of boundary condition like insulated constant heat flux, we call them non-Dirichlet boundary conditions. So note this, all these equations are continuous. Whereas in when you go to the computational course, the initial condition, the x and y and time, we write it at certain discrete values. These boundary conditions also, when you go to CFD, we express, normally we encounter the first derivatives in the boundary conditions. On those first derivatives, we express, when you go to CFD, they are expressed in linear algebraic equations. So although most of the present day CFD software are based on finite volume method, but I would like to highlight that for boundary conditions, there is no finite volume method, and people use finite difference method to derive linear algebraic equations for the blue circles. So for the yellow circles, we use finite volume method, but for blue circles, we use a finite difference method. But this initial and boundary conditions are discrete for computational heat conduction and continuous for analytical heat conduction. Okay, so finally, when you talk about the solution in a 2D and steady state heat conduction, in an analytical heat conduction, you get a solution which is something like this. You get temperature as a function of x, y, and time. And in CFD, you get a discretized pixel-based representation, where these are the x and y coordinates of the pixels, and this is the time. In your undergraduate heat transfer course, you derive one equation. Although here I have shown you a lot of pixels or grid points, but note that it's not that there is too much of equations we have to derive. We have to only derive one equation for one representative yellow circle, and basically we use it in a loop. So it is like in any analytical course, you derive a formula like z is equals to x into y. In any computational course, we also derive very similar equation, but instead of z is equals to x into y, we have the same equation in fact, but we write it in an indicial form. Okay, so the formulation that we do, it's not that there are, for each pixel or grid point we have to derive a separate equation. It is, we have to just, there could be millions of points, but we derive for one point only and just use a loop. So it's not that this is too difficult or too complicated. It's just that you need to understand and appreciate the certain approximation that are used in any computational course. Sivatkar, everything is fine?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, sir.
Not an issue.
Okay, so with this, I had completed this physical law-based finite. I've just given an introduction, as this is an introductory lecture. So with this, you have generated the linear algebraic equation for the yellow circle using finite volume method and for the blue circle using finite difference method. Now the third step, once you generate this equation, so note that this is like work that you do in pen and paper. It's basically you are deriving algebraic equations for a representative yellow circle and for the blue circles from the boundary conditions. Once you have obtained all the equations, the next step is solving. As I said, that the formula that you derive in any computational course, they are having a certain data structure. The formula itself is written in a data structure form, in a matrix form. Okay, so if the formula is like z is equals to x into y, you use calculator. But if you have a formula which itself is like z is equals to I comma j, where z is in a 2D matrix, x is a 2D matrix, y is a 2D matrix, then you need a computer to solve it. And programming wise also, we are not computer engineers, most of us are mechanical, chemical or civil engineers. But programming wise also, it's not difficult. It's just that you have to use a loop. And in my book, I have presented computer programs where from the website you can freely download. The programming language that I had used for a beginner in programming, I have used a programming language which is very similar to MATLAB, Scilab, which is an open source. So if you are a beginner in programming, you will not be afraid of it. You just need to write program for one equation and basically use a loop. So the third step is you develop a solution methodology, where in my book I have presented that various steps in the developing computer program. First, I talk about solution method, and then I talk about implementation detail, and finally solution algorithm. So as compared to other book, this implementation detail is something new which is presented in the present book, which basically talks about the nuts and bolts. Like if you are taught what is car, how car is made and how car works, the mechanism of, let us say, propeller shaft and the transmission system. But if you are not given nuts and bolts, if you are not told about what are the nuts and bolts involved in assembling the car, can you make a car? So in the present book, this implementation details are like nuts and bolts. It talks about certain details which are very much needed if you want to make a CFD software. Understanding theory is one thing, but if you have to be successful in making this product, you need the nuts and bolts which are required to develop the product. So this implementation is like that nuts and bolts, which is something new in the present book. And this nuts and bolts implementation detail for the software development corresponds to the loops, the data structure, to which I have given certain example problems which uses this implementation details. So using this step-by-step procedure, you should develop the computer program. But note that in this step, you will get only, because our algebraic equations was for velocities, pressures, and temperature, you will get a solution which is velocity, pressures, and temperature. But as an engineer, you are not satisfied only with the flow properties. You also want engineering parameter like rate of heat transfer, the drag force, lift force. So there is a fourth step which gives you solution for engineering parameters. So basically, you take this velocity, pressures, temperature distribution, and you do what is called as post-processing. So this third step is called as solver. First step is pre-processor, called as grid generation. Second step is like pen and paper work, algebraic formulation. In the third step, you solve it. It is called as solver. In the fourth step, you take the data that you obtain for flow properties and you do some processing to calculate the engineering parameters. Now, I'll explain this in separate slide. I think solution algorithm, there is also a separate slide. Let me go back. The solution algorithm, let me present in a single slide. So just to give you an idea that in solution methodology, through this slide, you can get a feel. Let us suppose you have taken this plate from a furnace and this plate is everywhere at a temperature of 500. So this 500 is like initial condition, because you're starting the movie from the first picture where this plate all is at 500 degrees centigrade. So all these yellow pixels are at 500 degrees centigrade. Whenever you take a heat conduction problem, like the first heat conduction problem that you have solved in your undergraduate course, it's like left wall 0 degrees centigrade, right wall 100 degrees centigrade. Okay, so this is some such problem. So let us suppose this plate is taken from a furnace at 250 degrees centigrade, and left wall is 100, bottom wall is 200, right wall is 300, and top wall is 400. So the pixels on the left wall, these pixels, are 100 degrees centigrade. This pixels on the bottom 200, this pixels on the right 300, this one 400. All the yellow pixels are at 250 because we have taken this plate from the furnace at 250 degrees centigrade. So note that you know the first picture from the initial condition and boundary condition. And CFD, we develop algebraic equation something like this, if it's an explicit method, where this is the data which is already known from the first picture. All the yellow circle 250, left blue circle 100, this 200, this 300, this 400. So we know the data from the first picture. Now what I'm showing you is a graphical representation of the formula that you use in a loop. Note that you have derived one formula, and that formula you will apply 9 times because there are 9 yellow circles. And what is the loop that you will be using? This is I equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you will be using I is equals to 2 to 4, j is equals to 2 to 4, and you will use an equation. Here p, instead of p, you will write in program, you convert p into I comma j. When you take east neighbor, you take I plus 1, west neighbor I minus 1, north neighbor j plus 1, south neighbor j minus 1. So to calculate the value of by in an explicit method, we know the data of the first picture. Now our formula is such that in an explicit method, to calculate it, there is only one value from the next picture. So to calculate the temperature of the new picture for this yellow circle, our formula is such. I'm showing you a graphical representation of the formula that we call as computational stencil. To calculate the temperature at this point, it is a function of 5 points from the previous picture. This, and this. So these temperatures are picked up, multiplied by the coefficient. What are the coefficient? Like if you have 3x plus 4y, 3 and 4 are coefficient. So in our algebraic formulation, the coefficient consists of 2 things. First, the geometrical parameters like width of the control volume, distance between the circles. So those geometrical parameters are involved as coefficient. And second is the thermophysical property like density, specific heat, thermal conductivity. So these 2 things are involved in the coefficients. So you take this temperature, multiply by the respective coefficient, and obtain the temperature. When you use a loop, this is the type of animation which happens behind your computer. This is the way loop goes from I is equals to 2 to 4 to j is equals to 2 to 4. Okay, so in this one slide, I am giving you a feel of the solution methodology. From the data of the first picture, our formula is such that we get the data for the second picture. Note that we have one formula, that formula we use in a loop. From the data of the second picture, we get the data of the third picture. There is always a time interval between our 2 consecutive pictures with this delta t, which we define in for our problem. So that was the solution methodology. And then we have a next step where we do certain post-processing. Let me show you certain example problems. So let us suppose you have solved in the third step and you have obtained temperature distribution. Let us suppose you have solved a heat conduction problem which reaches to a steady state. So let us suppose you have obtained temperature for these yellow circles and blue circles. So now as an engineer, you would like to know what is the rate of heat transfer from the left wall, right wall, bottom wall, top wall. So to calculate that, we calculate that in 2 steps. First, what we do is we calculate the heat flux. Suppose, so in this bottom wall, I want to calculate heat flux. What is heat flux? It is Qy. For the bottom wall, it is Qy. For the vertical wall, it is Qx. So if I want to calculate Qy on this wall, what is the formula? Qy is equals to minus k dt by dy. Now to calculate Qy, I will calculate on all these blue circles. To calculate dt by dy, one of the simplest procedure is to take the temperature of this neighboring yellow circle minus this temperature divided by the distance between the two. So this way you can calculate Qy at this point. Then you can calculate Qy at this point, and this point. Once you have calculated Qy at this 4 blue circle, basically you can multiply the Qy here by this distance to calculate total rate of heat transfer from this surface. Similarly, this Qy multiplied by this distance gives you the total rate of heat transfer from this portion of the bottom wall. So that way, by numerical differentiation, you obtain the conduction heat fluxes. By numerical integration, you obtain the total rate of heat transfer. This I presented for bottom wall. First, you calculate Qy, conduction flux, then you calculate the rate of heat transfer, capital Qy, from the bottom wall. Similarly, you can do for other walls. If you are considering a fluid mechanics problem, let us suppose this is a box where top wall is moving like a conveyor belt from left to right. Then the fluid inside this box, if the top wall is like a conveyor belt, at the top, the fluid near to the top wall tries to move along with the conveyor belt, but at the corner it cannot go out, so it turns. So there is a flow which is generated. You have a clockwise vortex which is formed. Now for this problem, instead of conduction heat flux, here you are interested in shear force or shear stress. So let us suppose you want to calculate shear stress here. Then the formula is you have to mu del u by del y. So calculate del u. So in the solver step, you have obtained the distribution. You have differentiation because you want to calculate del u by del y. You calculate shear stress on the bottom wall. So you can calculate shear stress at this point, and then from this point, and to calculate total shear force, you have to multiply each of these shear stresses by the respective areas, for which you do a numerical integration. So by numerical differentiation, you calculate local engineering parameter like heat flux, heat transfer, and wall shear stress in case of fluid mechanics. And by numerical integration, you calculate the total values of, let us say, rate of heat transfer and shear force for fluid mechanics. So with this, this is the fourth step. And the final and the last step is product development you have to do testing. So the last step is testing, where you compare the results. That note that you've obtained the results in two steps. In step 3, you have obtained the flow properties. Step 4, and then take both the solutions and compare with certain products. If you are comparing with experimental results, it is called as validation. If you are comparing your numerical result with some software which is also a numerical result, then it is called as verifications. Okay. So the last step is testing. So these are the 5 different steps of CFD development, which are presented separately with slides corresponding to grid generation, algebraic formulation, solver, engineering parameters, and finally testing. Okay, so this is how the CFD development works. Now, when you go to CFD application works, you need to understand that if you're using a software, you have to be clever enough to use a software. So that's why you may feel that I'm using a software, so it is sufficient that I should be taught how software works. It's like if you want to drive a car, if you know how car works, if you know the mechanism or the components of the car, probably you can be a better driver. So because you have to make certain choices, like you have to change the gear and you have to basically play with the clutches and so on. If you know how a car is made, then you can drive the car in a better way. I hope you can appreciate this and you can understand this. Similarly, even if you are using a software, if you know how CFD software works, what are the details, what is the physics and maths which is involved in the development of the software. Because as a user, know that there are various gears and clutches which are involved when you are using the software. And if you know how software is made, then probably while choosing the proper gear and clutches in the software, because whenever you use the software and when you want to do something, it gives you n number of options. And then you need to decide, you need to choose, and you should be clever enough. So that way, the CFD application talks about the choices that you have to make, but those choices are related with the development details, CFD development details. So everything is coupled in sense. But here I am emphasizing in CFD applications the various types of initial and boundary conditions, because when you are using a software for your problem, you have to choose boundary conditions. So fluid dynamic movie that you make, for each problem they are different. The reason is that each CFD problem, the results vary due to shape and size of the flow region. Like if you consider the different shape of the car, each car will have its own fluid dynamic movie. You consider different shape and size. So that way, each problem in fluid mechanics depends on the shape and size of the flow region or computational region. Now, the fluid which is flowing in your fluid mechanics problem also decides the solution which you obtain. So these are the parameters which affect the final solution. Shape and size of the flow region, fluid property. Note that there are two properties, fluid and flow. Fluid properties are density, specific heat, thermal conductivity, and so on. Dynamic viscosity, kinematic viscosity. Flow properties are velocities, pressures, and temperatures. Other than the fluid properties, the initial and boundary conditions, they are very important. Initial and boundary conditions, in fact, dictate the solution. They act like a judge to the problem. Initial condition, as I had mentioned, give you the first picture. The boundary condition give you the blue circle values for all time duration. CFD software cannot be completely automated, so this you cannot use a machine learning technique to run a CFD software, and so there are certain things where human user input is required, and those are required for choosing these various options. A software cannot decide which problem you are solving, so it cannot come up with it can be customized for certain industrial application, like aerospace industry have their own customized software. But if you consider most of the software that is available for you to use, they are general purpose software. For those general purpose software, you need to define your problem, you need to define your domain, you need to define what is the fluid, you need to define the initial and boundary condition. These are extremely important when you are applying a software. So in CFD applications, when you consider boundary conditions, let us say in a heat conduction problem, I'm just introducing that there are certain initial conditions. Like this is one of the boundary condition: constant wall temperature, bottom wall insulated, right wall constant heat flux, and top wall convective boundary conditions. These are various thermal boundary conditions which you may have to apply while solving a heat conduction problem. If you are solving a flow across, there are two types of problems in fluid mechanics: external flow and an internal flow. Like if you consider flow across a car or flow across an aeroplane, it's an external flow problem because the boundary layer is free to develop over the surface without any constraint being imposed. Okay, other than this, we have another problem, internal flow problem. Like if you consider flow in a pipe, then the boundary layer that develops from the surface of the pipe, it is constrained by the other surface. So for an external flow problem, let us suppose there is a circular cylinder across which flow is moving, and if it is heated, then it also becomes a heat transfer problem. And you have an initial condition corresponding to this problem. And if you consider an external flow, this is in a software, there is a button where you use an inlet. But note that when you choose that inlet, it basically is using this boundary condition, where it's taking the velocity as constant velocity, this vertical velocity is 0, and the temperature is ambient. Although you have to give this values as a user, what is this value of the free stream velocity and free stream temperature? When you use an outflow boundary condition in a software, basically it uses, for most of the time, it uses fully developed flow boundary conditions, where we say the streamwise gradient of velocities and temperatures are 0. On the top and bottom wall, although when we say external flow, the domain is infinite, but when we create a movie, we have to take a finite height. We cannot take an infinite height in our movies because we have to zoom to certain region. And at the top and bottom boundary, we commonly use a boundary condition which is called as free slip boundary conditions. And at the surface, we have a no slip boundary condition for the velocities and temperature. For an internal flow problem, at the top and bottom wall, we use a no slip boundary condition. Here, otherwise, we use an inlet and outlet boundary conditions. So these are the boundary conditions and initial conditions which you have to choose while using a software. Now, when you're using a software, these are step-by-step process or a flowchart for application of CFD code or a software. You start with certain initial, where you basically have to give what is the fluid you are considering, what is the there are certain parameters that you have to give, like convergence criteria. When you talk of steady state, you want your picture stops changing. On steady state, the picture changes. But when it reaches to the steady state, So while initialization is also certain solution control. In CFD, we have to solve certain equations iteratively. So controls called as under relaxation factors. Okay, then you monitor certain solutions because while your data is evolving, you want to see whether it is converged, the numbers are approaching towards infinity. Then you have to modify certain parameters. You may have to modify the under relaxation factor. You have to modify the mesh quality. Then you have to go back to the CFD simulation. Once it converges, it means that you have got hopefully the correct solution, and then you stop. So these are a flow chart for the step-by-step solution of the CFD software. Now, I am left with about half an hour. I have completed how CFD, I started with what is CFD, then I went into how CFD development work, then I went into how CFD application work, I am now into how CFD analysis work, and finally I will present why to study CFD. Sevatkar, any question at this moment?
So not essential. Because why question is not time average in the discrete form. That's the question asked by Ankush Kurukshetra.
Okay, we'll take it at the end. Let us first.
But some of the participants are saying that the audio is not clear. But to me, audio is clear, and to many of the others also the audio is clear.
Yeah, so the problem many a times is from the receiving end. All of you understand that there is a source and there is a sink also.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so try to, most of the people are able to hear it, so maybe the problem is on the sink side. So although from my side, I will try to improve, but.
Yeah. But
thanks for bringing it to attention.
Many of the people are saying that the audio is fine.
Yeah. But from my side, let me try to improve, and you also try to improve from your side. You are
okay. Sir,
okay. Thanks. So, yeah. Tell me.
One question: which software you use for? I mean, maybe for the results which you shared. That may be the question. I mean, I did not understand actually which software you are using.
Okay, so the question, yeah. So what I'm saying is that as I work in the area of CFD, is asking which software I'm using. The answer is I don't use any software. We build our own software.
Yeah.
So the PhD student in our lab, when they join for PhD, they are trained in CFD development, CFD application, CFD analysis. So Sevatkar is one of I'm happy and proud to say that he is one of our PhD students who got the best PhD thesis award from IIT Bombay, and he has gone through this process, so he understands and appreciates. We know that we use software only to generate the plots, the figures, but the data that is used to plot, those data are generated from our own CFD codes or softwares. So the answer is we develop our own software or our own code and we use it. We don't use any ready-made software. I think that was the question, sir. Shall I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how CFD analysis work. I'll take two problems to explain you how CFD analysis work. The first problem on conduction and second problem on fluid dynamics. Both this problem I'm taking as unsteady state problem, two-dimensional unsteady state. Now, how CFD analysis work, although I'll take two example problem to explain it, but there are key things which I would like to highlight. For the application, when you want to make a story of the silent movie that is generated from CFD software, although as I mentioned that software doesn't automatically generate the movie, you have to cleverly do certain things to get the proper movie so that the movie is capturing a lot of action and then you can make a story. So analysis is very important and probably it's one of the neglected portion in CFD study. So you need to do a proper collection of spatial and temporal variations. When I say word proper, What I mean is that when you do CFD simulation, you get data from the complete domain, but the action is occurring in certain region. So your movie that you create always is a zoomed version of the data that you have obtained. So that way, what you mean is that you need to decide which region there is most of the action. Like let's suppose for flow in the room by fan, you can to do simulations. You need all the walls of your room to create CFD simulations. But if you are making a movie, I will zoom to near to the surface of the fan, because that's where most of the velocity gradient and most of the action is occurring. So you need to create proper data where most of the action is happening, so that you can make a story of flow across a fan. Now you generate, as I mentioned, two types of movies: scientifically exciting and engineering relevant movies, which I will show you through two example problems. And finally, you have to make a story. You have to do by doing what is called a CFD analysis, which will involve the cause, the science, and the engineering effect with the help of these figures to come up with a fluid dynamics story. So I'll present two problems. First on heat conduction, which is corresponding to electronic cooling. Electronic cooling is one of the common problem. Like if you go to purchase your mobile, one of the common thing that you see in the feedback or review is the heating of the mobile. So nowadays we are having a lot of miniaturization, where we are increasing the functionality of the electronic component and trying to reduce the size. This leads to a lot of, so when you increase the functionality, there is more heat generation, and we need a heat dissipation technology. So this is the problem corresponding to that. I'll discuss this more in the coming slide. This is the second problem, which is like this: if you are standing in a river, let's suppose this is the top view, and from the top you are looking like a circle. And let us suppose in the river the fluid is moving from left to right. And all of you know that when you're standing and the water is moving from left to right, basically it tries to push you along its flow direction. So there is a force from the fluid flowing which tries to take you along the flow direction. This is called as drag force. Whereas there is another force which acts at larger and number, which acts in the perpendicular direction. For you, it will be a lateral force, not the lift force, but for an aeroplane, it's a lift force. So these are the engineering effect. The fluid dynamic phenomena, the scientific effect is the flow separation, vortex formation, vortex shading, which decides the character of the flow. So when you make a movie for this case, I have mentioned that there are actors and characters. Like when we will make a movie for heat conduction, the actor for this is temperature. When I make movie for the flow across, let us say, or let us say I can take it like a circular pillar of the bridge. So let us suppose this is a pillar of a bridge and it's standing over the bridge, and you are watching the fluid which is passing through the circular pillar of the bridge. So the actor for this movie is only temperature, because in conduction equation you only have energy equation. But when you go to fluid mechanics, you have momentum equation. Now the momentum equation basically uses Newton's second law of motion. And Newton's second law of motion is a vector law. So here you get a vector equation. And I'll just take a break for drink water and come back. Just hold on. Shivatkar, you are able to see the slide?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so what I was saying is the actor for this heat conduction problem is temperature. The actor for this fluid dynamics problem is the velocities. Velocity in fluid mechanics, in conduction, you apply only energy equation. So there is one conservation law, energy conservation law, which is the mother, and the child is temperature. In the fluid mechanics, there are two: mass conservation and momentum conservation. For the momentum conservation, which is a vector law, the child is also a vector, which is the velocity. The mass conservation law is a scalar, and the child is like a pressure. So pressures and velocities are actors in this fluid dynamic movie, whereas for heat conduction, the actor is temperature. And the engineering information for a heat conduction problem is rate of heat transfer, whereas in a fluid mechanics problem, these are The engineering actors are this drag force and the lateral force or lift force. So let us consider the first problem, which is a heat conduction problem for electronic cooling. And let us suppose there is an electronic device which is very long. Okay, this is very long, and this is basically connected by a series of aluminum plate. Aluminum plate where there is a groove which we call as microchannel in which water is flowing. The heat which is leaving this electronic component first goes to this aluminum plate, and finally it enters this channel. So you have a very long electronic chip, and this is connected with what we call as heat sink. Note that his heat sink is made up of certain element which is repeating. So you can see the top and bottom half, it is mirror image, and this module is repeating bottom. So it's very long. I'm not showing you the upward and downward, but it's very long. So if you have that situation, it will so turn out that the geometrical configuration is such that if you obtain the temperature distribution between this upper half and the lower half, it will be symmetric. Now, when the temperature distribution due to geometrical arrangement is symmetric, then on this is called a symmetry boundary. The temperature variation is like this acts like an insulated boundary conditions. Okay, and moreover, we have used on the right wall, we have an insulation because we want that all the heat which is dissipating from the electronic chip, let us suppose we want that it should go to the water in the microchannel. So since at this boundary, the geometrical configuration is such that it is symmetric. Here also, if you have a very long aluminum plate, here also the heat is symmetric. So what we do is that we do not do simulation for this long aluminum plate. We just take one small module because we know that if you have obtained the temperature for, let us say, this upper half, the bottom half is a mirror image of this, and the temperature distribution for this is same as this, the temperature distribution for this is same as this. So we just take one module of this aluminum plate where we know that if you obtain this solution, this is sufficient enough to give us the solution for the complete aluminum plate. Okay, because we are considering a situation where this is very long. If you consider near to the edge, the result will vary and we have to do separate simulation. But for a very long, and if your element is somewhere in the middle, then this much element is good enough. And we also know from the geometrical configuration that the top and bottom wall, since it's a symmetric arrangement, geometrical symmetry leads to thermal symmetry, and thermal symmetry leads to a symmetric condition, which is like an insulated boundary condition. So here it is like an insulated boundary condition, On the right wall, we have physically created some insulation. So here is an insulation. So with this arrangement, what I'm trying to show is the heat which is leaving the electronic component, it cannot go from the top wall, bottom wall, and right wall. Where it will finally go? It will go to this water in the channel. Okay, so the heat which is leaving the electronic chip goes to this water in the channel through three regions. There are three paths, you can say. One is this left wall of this thing, which is called the west wall, north wall, and east wall. So there are three directions of rate of heat transfer going to this sink: Q, W, Q, N, Q, E. Now let us look into the dimension. Let us try to get the feel of the numbers. What is the length of this aluminum plate? 20 millimeter, that is 2 centimeter. Height, 1 centimeter. What is the size of this microchannel? Length is 0.8 centimeter. Height is 0.5 mm. So you can imagine the size. And you can see that this channel is microchannel. It's extremely fine channel we are creating. And the heat flux is 10 to the power 5 watt per meter square from the electronic chip. Here we are having a force convection in this channel, and the conductivity transfer coefficient is 5000 watt per meter square Kelvin. The fluid which is moving through this channel, let us suppose there is a water which is at ambient temperature of 15 degrees centigrade. So these are the inputs that are given to you. Now, so the length of this aluminum plate is 10 mm. So if you multiply this heat flux with the height of this chip, which is same as the height of this aluminum plate, you get 1000 watt per meter. So if you have 1 meter perpendicular to this plane where I am showing, for that much length of this aluminum plate perpendicular to the plane, the heat which is entering into this aluminum plate is 1000 watt per meter perpendicular to this plane, which is being shown. So 1000 watt is entering at each and every time instant. Now, when you start this problem, what happens? Let us suppose this aluminum plate is initially at 15 degrees centigrade. Now, when the heat starts entering from the electronic chip, initially this aluminum plate will store some heat. Now you apply thermodynamics. In thermodynamics, you have studied that the heat which is leaving this chip, certain amount of heat gets stored, and the remaining heat goes to the sink. But as time progresses, the amount of heat which is stored, now this amount of heat stored leads to rate of change of enthalpy and leads to the change of temperature in the aluminum plate. But as time progresses, the amount of heat stored in the aluminum plate reduces. Okay, so the change in the temperature inside this aluminum plate slowly becomes slow. And finally, a time comes, which we call a steady state, when this aluminum plate stops storing heat from this chip. And when an aluminum plate stops storing heat, there is no change in temperature, because when there is no heat stored, there is no rate of change of enthalpy, and there is no change in the temperature inside this aluminum plate, and that is what is called as steady state. So at steady state, this 1000 watt should go to this water in the channel. But steady state, if you add all these three rate of heat transfer, this should be 1000. So in this slide, I will show you a movie where there will be two movies. The top movie will be, I will call it as a scientifically exciting movie. The bottom movie, I'll call it as an engineering relevant movie. Now, as I mentioned, that this is the heat which is entering from the electronic chip, and this is the heat which is entering to the channel. Now, what I am plotting here is the yellow line is the rate of heat transfer entering from the east wall. The green and blue are from entering from the west and north. And what is pink? Pink is summation of all these three. The pink is, if you add all these three rate of heat transfer, I am showing you pink. So the pink is basically, if you take the difference of this Q in and this rate of heat transfer, which is shown by pink, that is the heat which is stored by aluminum plate. Now, what are you finding? What is the nature of this rate of heat transfer? They are increasing and finally asymptotic. What is the asymptotic value of this total heat which is going to this water in the sink? It is, asymptotic value is 1000. So when our movie approaches towards this asymptotic value, the total amount of heat which is taken by water in the channel is same as the amount of heat which is entering, which is steady state, and then the temperature should stop changing. Now I will play a movie where in the top movie the actor is temperature, but along with it I am showing a heat, a line which is similar to streamline, which I call as heat line, which is like a roadmap or path of the heat flow. Note that the first picture I am showing you is a blue everywhere, which means the plate initially everywhere it is 15 degrees centigrade. Now, in this movie, you will see that the colors will change. And this line, the roadmap, the path on from which heat is going to this left wall, west wall, north wall, east wall, the lines, the paths will be changing. But in the bottom movie, there will be a dot moving on a line. This is a 2D movie because the colors are changing in a 2D plane. This is a 1D movie because the value of rate of heat transfer is changing as with respect to time. Note that in the x-axis for this, you have a time, and in the y-axis you have rate of heat transfer. The rate of heat transfer are shown for the separately for the east wall, north wall, west wall, and the summation of all these three. Okay, so there is a dot. I'll play and explain this. Okay, now at this time instant it's almost 5 seconds. You can see at this time instant the rate of heat transfer from the east wall is maybe 100 watt. Here it is maybe 225 watt. Here it is 625. 1000 is entering. If you subtract minus 6, let us say it is 650 maybe. So the remaining 350 is getting stored. And that is what is causing the change in the temperature. You can see now at this time instant you have a green here. So here temperature is 25. Here the temperature is 15 degrees centigrade. So the heat transfer has started, but it has not reached to the back surface. You can see this heat line, which are like roadmap for the heat flow. The heat which is leaving from the bottom portion of the chip is going straight. The heat which is leaving from the top portion, some of which is going to the top wall, and the remaining portion has to turn. There is a 180-degree turn which this heat has to do. So the amount of heat transfer is least on the east surface. Yellow is the minimum in this among all these three you can see. The amount of heat transfer is blue and green. So the amount of heat which is leaving, almost same amount goes to this, because the road, if you see, it's relatively straight for the heat to go. But for this wall, it has to turn back. This gives an idea. So what I'm trying to explain is the cause also of the rate of heat transfer, and then trying to correlate the engineering effect, the rate of heat transfer, the scientific effect, that is the temperature distribution, which is present, the heat flow which is presented through heat lines. So this movie gives you the character of heat flow. This movie gives you the engineering information. So this is an engineering relevant movie. This is a scientifically exciting movie. And you have to make a story involving the cause from this movie and the effect from this movie. Okay, now you will see that, sorry. As time progresses, as it asymptotes, I would like to draw your attention that slowly the temperature stops changing. Now you will see almost it has stopped changing, because now the heat stored is approaching towards zero. You will see not any change at this. Okay, so this was the first movie we have introduced, the movie for conduction heat transfer. These are the pictures in a book. You can download this movie from this website, cfdmadeeasy.org. But in the book, in the hard copy, these are the pictures which are given at different time instants. So that was the movie for the heat conduction, where the actor is temperature. Now, when you go to fluid dynamics, corresponding to flow across a circular pillar of the bridge, or flow across circular cylinder, or flow across U, if your cross section is circular, then, as I said, that let us suppose this is your computational domain, but the movie which I'm showing you is a zoomed region where most of the action is occurring. So this movies that I'm showing corresponds to, let us say, this zoomed region, which I'm showing by a red line. And this is the drag force, this is the lift force. So what are the actors in this movie? In this movie, the actor is the velocity distribution, and the color corresponds to vorticity. So there are two actors in this movie. Who is the actor in this movie? Now, in this movie, the actor is, the color corresponds to the pressure. The pressure is actor in this movie. But along with him, I'm also showing the roadmap or the path for the flow, which is given by streamlines. Okay, so here there are two actors, streamlines and pressure. Here there are two actors, velocities and vorticities. Note that in fluid mechanics, only velocities and pressures are not good enough to make a story. Fluid mechanics, it's a very complicated phenomena. If you want to make a complete story, you borrow some more actors which have been derived from theory of fluid mechanics. Like vorticity has been defined theoretically in fluid mechanics, which basically makes us understand locally, point by point in flow region, what is the rotation of the fluid particle at some point in space. So, like, to give you an idea, the vorticity, you can see the color, the maximum value is +10, the minimum value is -10. All of you know that rotation can be clockwise or anti-clockwise. So here anti-clockwise is taken as positive and clockwise as negative. So wherever you have a red region, locally at those points, the fluid is rotating in anti-clockwise direction. So here the fluid is rotating in anti-clockwise, here the fluid is rotating in clockwise. So note that here I am showing the vorticity as well as velocity, where here I am showing you pressure. The movie that I am showing you here, note that the previous movie I had shown you from initial condition. The plate was at 15 degree and it reached to a steady state temperature distribution. Okay, now in this movie, I am not showing you a movie from the initial condition. I am showing you a clip of movie corresponding to what we call as periodic state. Note that there are two classes of problem, steady problem and unsteady problem. Like the heat conduction problem that I presented previously, when you start making movie, you reach to a state where picture stops changing. That is what we call a steady state. But if you make a movie for this, here picture will never stop changing. You will reach to a stage where instead of picture stop changing, what will happen is that there is a certain picture which will repeat after certain time interval. Okay, so that is what we call as periodic flow. You can see that the lift and drag force for periodic flow, they are varying like a sinusoidal variation. So when you have a periodic flow, the movie that I am showing you here corresponds to a clip of the movie corresponding to one periodic cycle, which is corresponding to the cycle of vortex shedding. And note that there are two y-axes in this figure. CL on the left axis, where CL is shown by yellow color. On one cycle of CL, there are two cycles of CD. CD is shown by this blue color. You can see that the lift force is varying from plus 0.3 to minus 0.3. So you can see the lift force changes its direction periodically. So it is upward, downward. Whereas if you see the drag force, it is all positive. It's varying from 1.406 to 1.392. And the amplitude of variation is very small. But CD is always positive. So this force is always in the from left to right. Whereas this changes from upward to downward. The reason is when I play this movie, you can see that this dark blue region, which corresponds to pressure, this will start moving up and down. Because here you can see this is a vortex which is formed. The vortex is a signature of low pressure region. These are all scientific informations. Okay, so this movie gives us the pressure distribution, the vortex formation, gives us the cause why this lift force is changing its direction. So there are a lot of why, which because as an engineer we also want to study the cause of an engineering effect. So we also use our scientific bend of mind as an engineer to understand like why CL is moving, changing its direction. The answer comes from this movie because here you will see that the low pressure region, which corresponds to the vortex formation, is moving up and down. And you can see there is a, here on the front half, you can see the the red color corresponds to 0.5, the blue color corresponds to minus 0.4. So you can see that here the red color corresponds to large pressure, blue color corresponds to low pressure. You can see the front half is exposed to red color. So the front half there is a large pressure, the rear half is subject to blue color. So the rear half there is a low pressure. So when you have, let us suppose your front part of your body, you have a large pressure, rear part of the body there is a low pressure, then you expect there is a force which will act from your front surface towards the bottom surface. So the river water tries to drag you because the pressure distribution on your surface, on the front half it is more and the rear half it is less. There are a lot of such insights or the call which comes from this fluid dynamics movie. Okay, so that way CFD greatly helps us if you make the right type of movie, if you do a right type of CFD analysis to answer these questions. Okay, so with this background, let me just play this movie. So you say dark blue region is now downward. Okay, now dark blue region is upward slowly. This is basically the vortex formation which leads to the dark blue region moving up and down, which leads to CL variation. And this is positive, 0.3 minus 0.3. Okay, so you can play these movies. You can download from the cfdmadeeasy.org and then you can try to understand whatever I discussed. Due to limitation of time, I'll not be able to discuss more on this, but there are a lot of discussions. One can write 2-3 pages itself on by looking into these movies. These are silent movies. You can make up a story. In my book, I have presented this as pictures. This corresponds to figure 1.3 of the book. Although don't get too much carried away with the movies, so the role of CFD is not only limited to creating a scientifically exciting fluid dynamic movie of flow properties, but also to create engineering relevant movie of engineering parameters. I would like to point out that in both the movies that I had shown, the scientifically exciting movies were 2D and engineering relevant movies are 1D, because engineering parameters are always one dimension less than the fluid property informations. Like if it's a 2D flow, then your flow properties, you get 2D information. Whereas in case of 3D flow, you get a 3D information for flow properties. Whereas engineering parameter, you always have to do certain integrals, because to calculate heat transfer, you have to do surface integral of the conduction fluxes. So since the engineering parameters are integral parameters, there is always, when you talk about this engineering relevant movies, they are always one dimension less than the scientifically exciting movies. So you not only create these movies, but you also make engineering relevant movies for a unified cause and effect based comprehensive analysis of various heat and fluid flow situations. Finally, I'll take 3-4 minutes before I end on the last question: why do you want to study CFD? I wish and hope you already know why you have come here to attend this lecture, so you know the importance of this course, but I'll just highlight a few things. from an industrial and research perspective and in academics. So the CFD has led to drastic improvement in the design methodologies, like the factor of safety that is used in designing various products using the data book. The CFD has come up with a more scientific ways of designing. So it has led to the improvement in the design methodology. It's an excellent platform for innovation, because if you have come with, let us say, new shape of the car, you did not make the actual car, but you can make a virtual model, solid model, and you can. So if you have some product in mind, you can test its performance. What CFD can test is basically the thermal hydraulic performance. So if you have a thermal hydraulic performance-based product, this is an excellent platform for innovation, because you need not work with physical materials, but you can work in a virtual world. For existing product, it's an integral part of an engineering study, where in industry, people have interacted as a CFD consultant with Crompton Group's global R&D. So I've seen closely how industry use this CFD softwares for their transformer, electric motors, and so on. And this leads to a lot of saving in their maintenance cost and initial cost. So this has led to more scientific, CFD has led to more scientific as compared to empirical approach in design and development of the products. Presently, CFD is more commonly used as an analysis tool, although industry wants to use it as a design and optimization tool. However, it takes a lot of computational time presently to use it as a design and optimization. So it is used by scientists and engineers dealing with fluid mechanics and heat transfer in various industries. More than CFD is used in various industries: aerospace, automobile, turbo machining, chemical, electrical, electronics, biomedical. So biomedical is one area which is getting a lot of importance, especially in the present scenario. So for biomedical simulations, especially the heart simulations, even for the COVID cases, there are a lot of CFD simulations which are trying to answer many questions. In future, more often CFD will be used as a design and optimization tool. Now, in academics, CFD is used as an undergraduate elective and postgraduate course in different branches of engineering. Although the importance of CFD has increased so much, and from my side, I have tried to make this subject easy enough. So I wish and hope that this course is taught in early undergraduate, and hopefully, if it is taught as an undergraduate course, then the students are trained enough to make CFD software in India. So the increasing importance of CFD development application in the industry as well as research organization, along with lack of trained manpower in this subject, has greatly increased the importance of this course. So I think I had come to the end of this lecture. So it's exactly 1:30. So this is just before I end. This is the companion textbook. I just want to give you the structure. Basically, what I had presented is roughly the first 2 chapters of the book, where I had tried to give you an introduction of CFD development, CFD application, CFD analysis, and I had also talked about what is CFD and why to study CFD. Now, any product development. So this is the first part, which basically talks about introduction and essentials. Like if you want to study CFD, I've taken the responsibility, even if you have not done fluid dynamics, heat transfer, and numerical methods. What are the very essential concepts which are needed? So this is like foundation, building your foundation before you actually go to develop CFD softwares. This is like the first level of software development, CFD software development for Cartesian geometry. This starts, any product development is component by component. So this is the first component, conduction, then advection, then the combination of these two called as convection. So each is a component by component development presented in various chapters, which leads to finally the development of Navier-Stokes solver. So with this, you can develop CFD software for Cartesian geometry. This is the part 2. The part 3 is basically through this, you should be able to develop CFD software for complex geometry. This book starts with a building foundation, which is extremely important for any learning. So it's on introduction and essentials of 3 subjects: fluid dynamics, heat transfer, and numerical methods. And then the first level of product development, and then more sophisticated development. Note that this book is more for first course in CFD, because you can have specialized course on CFD for multi-phase flows, CFD for turbulent flows, CFD for fluid structure interaction. This is tailored towards the title of this workshop, CFD for beginners. This is the first chapter on introduction and essentials. This is the first part. This is the second part on CFD for Cartesian geometry. And this is the third part, CFD for complex geometry. Okay, so the purpose of this book or this lecture is that with this three-pronged approach of CFD development, application analysis, the purpose is that you will learn to appreciate the theory as well as utilize it for the development of new CFD software. Or even if you are using an existing software, you will use it more intelligently for a more realistic CFD, so that the results that you obtain is a real world fluid dynamics, not the colorful fluid dynamics. Thus, you will be set for becoming a CFD expert. Okay, so this is the reference book. Whatever I had presented here corresponds to chapter 1 and 2 of this book. And the supplementary of the book, you can get it from this website. Note that this book's website I had created, not the publisher, where I had presented the movies and the codes and the colored films and some lecture videos for this. Thank you for your attention. So Sivatkar, I have come to the end of this lecture, and if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a wonderful insight. It has given a wonderful insight into the subject matter. There were few questions, in fact, but the questions I have tried to answer through the chat box itself.
Yeah, good. Actually, I would suggest that if you feel certain questions which are relevant and important, I would suggest that you can ask those questions, because I do understand many times the questions are not that appropriate, so you can ignore them.
Hello.
So any question? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the questions almost I have, there were 2-3 questions, like for example, there was question, I mean, how do we ensure the accuracy in ANSYS software?
Okay.
I have answered the question in the chat box, like.
Good. So you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. As of, I mean, if you have any question, participants, please go ahead, please.
Yeah, you can speak out if you want to
One
come forward.
question was there, why Q dot generation is not time average in the discrete form?
I could not understand the question. Can you repeat?
Why Q dot generation is not
Okay. Time average. Okay.
time.
Okay. I got it. Okay. Heat generation, for most of the problem, it does not varies with time. So that way it was not time average. But if it is varying, it has to be time average. So it was considered for a situation where it is not varying in time. Okay.
Yeah. Is there any question,
Okay, sir.
participants? You can
Hello.
Any comments? Feel free to come forward. Yeah. Any suggestion? Yeah.
Hello, sir. I have a question.
First, introduce yourself, your name,
Sir,
and then.
Yes, sir. My name is Prasant Kumar Jha, and I am assistant professor at MIT Bihar. Sir,
Okay,
I want to ask you that what are the prerequisites to learn CFD?
Okay. I don't want you to tell too many prerequisites. I don't want you to be discouraged with the prerequisites, because all of you have done undergraduate fluid mechanics and heat transfer. So
Yes, sir.
those are good enough to start for you to start learning CFD. Although in my book I have special chapters where the complete fluid dynamics heat transfer, whatever is very much needed in CFD, I have put
Yes,
it in that. So with that, you already have the prerequisite, you already have the background. Okay.
Yes,
so,
sir. And I am following the book by S. Patankar.
yeah, that's a very good book. I have also learned from that. I have dedicated my book to that. But it's just that I have tried to make it more easy, so that because there in the book that you refer, it uses volume integral Gauss divergence theorem. So many times you
Yes,
are not
sir.
able to appreciate. So I have tried to break that barrier of learning. And
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
okay,
Thank you, sir.
thanks. Any other comments, suggestions, questions? Okay, Satkar, I think there is no more questions. So maybe you can conclude and then we can stop.
Yeah, so we come to the end of the second session on overview of computational fluid dynamics by Professor Atul Sharma. I express my sincere thanks to Professor Atul Sharma for taking efforts to deliver his lectures. I mean, these lectures were both the sessions were extremely useful. I'm sure that the sessions have given a right insight to the participants in terms of as to how the CFD works. I mean, how the pre-processing, post solver and post-processing steps work, and what is the significance of each and every step, especially for understanding the various engineering parameters. Engineering parameters are very important to all of us, and then how those engineering parameters can be obtained using computational fluid dynamics techniques. That is what he has tried to explain in a conceptual fashion. Of course, we will be going through the details of the finite volume methodology when we will be dealing, and we are going to deal step by step. We will be dealing with the conduction problem, advection problem, then conduction convection problem, and we will also try to understand the solution of entire Navier-Stokes equation. But then before going ahead with that stuff, it is essential for all of us to understand the overall structure of the computational methodology which is used to obtain the solution to various parameters like velocity, pressure, temperature, and maybe engineering parameters like drag coefficient, friction coefficient, and so on and so forth. So for that, the sufficient background has been now made by Professor Atul Sharma. I'm extremely thankful to Professor Atul Sharma. He has been always a backbone for all of us to learn CFD. In fact, I'm happy to share with you that I have done my PhD under Professor Atul Sharma and Professor Amit Agrawal, who is his colleague there at IIT Bombay. And my experience of working with Professor Atul Sharma was extremely good. So I express my sincere thanks, Professor Atul Sharma. Thank you very much for sharing your valuable time and sharing your valuable knowledge. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
everyone for invitation, and I would like to thank all the participants. And with the online mode, I'm happy to see that I can see the participants from the far places. Like one of the participants, Professor Jha, was from Bihar.
Yes.
I wish and hope let us take whatever is happening in a positive sense also, so that we are able to reach people. In fact, so in this mode, we are able to reach to the participants not only from far places in India, but in certain courses we are able to reach outside India also, especially many developing countries which look forward to us for learning. So this is an experience which I had got through this online training. So the main important thing is that I've given lectures, but I look forward that you develop your own experiential learning. I suggest that don't believe because I said that. Don't believe that it is written in the book. Believe only after you go through it carefully, and your mind, body, motion, energy supports what that you believe. With this background, thank you for attention. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So participants will be breaking for the lunch now, and we will meet again at 2:30 for the next lecture on governing equations by Professor Milan Kumar Nandgaonkar from College of Engineering, Pune. So till then, we'll be taking the break till 2:30. We'll come back at sharp 2:30 for the next session. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Professor Sharma sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
The participants are asking for the PPT. So will it be possible to share the PPT in a PDF mode through so that I can share it with them?
Okay. Okay. let me think about it. I'll come back to this later.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll get back to you.
Okay.
But
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm disconnecting.
Yes,
Huh?
sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I am also disconnecting for the time being. We'll come back at 2:30. Thank you, participants.